This is Cathedral Valley. It's just another incredible place that we're seeing here in the Utah Badlands. It's like the third day that we've been here, and every single place that we go to is just incredibly stunning. It's just like all of the amazing scenery that you can find in the world is kind of squeezed into this tiny remote area here. It's absolutely incredible. So getting out here is a bit of a trek. It's quite rough ground. We had to deflate the tires just to be able to run a little bit more smoothly over the gravel road here. And when we got here, it's just really harsh light, which you've got these incredible columns here that you can see. They look just amazing when we pull up. They're incredibly big. You don't really get a sense of the scale. But it was clear when we got here, there's nothing happening in the sky. It's super, super contrasty. So we just waited for the blue hour to come. The sun's gone down about 10 minutes ago now, and you can see there's just this really nice pink pastel glow on the horizon. And this is just the optimum time to shoot it. It's another place where it would be so nice if we had some drama, something happening in the sky. But this soft color, it's really nice. You can just see the reds and oranges in the rock are just starting to come out. So when we got here, we spent about an hour just exploring the place, really trying to get to know it, work out where the best compositions are. Because a place like this, it can be completely overwhelming. There's just so much to shoot here. It's just incredible in every direction that you look, and you can kind of just want to shoot everything and want to kind of have so many different compositions. So I kind of worked out the places where I most wanted to stand, and now we've got the really good light. This I think is the shot, but after I've shot this, I'd like to kind of go down there a little bit and maybe see if I can find some other compositions. But again, it's just been an amazing evening being out here. Just an incredible place with wonderful light, and just, yeah, what a wonderful place to be.
So as I said, when we arrived, the sun was quite harsh and the contrasts were really strong, with the shadows becoming really dark, which kind of takes the focus away from the other elements of the image. You can see with these two images taken in strong sunlight, and then again 20 minutes after sunset, how softer and indirect light really helped the scene. My favorite light though was just after the sun went down and we had this lovely pink twilight. The light was really soft, letting the reds and yellows of the landscape really come out, and without the hard contrasts of direct light, everything just felt a lot better balanced. The main compositional choice here was whether to add the spire on the left or just to keep the group of three in front of me. It all comes down to balance. I thought that the spire on the left split your attention a little, and 3 is kind of a magic number. It just gives better balance and a simpler arrangement of elements and greater focus, because less is sometimes more. I also tried both images with a figure included to give a sense of scale and to add a little mood of remoteness to the landscape, and I think this turned out to be one of my favorite shots of the evening. Once I was happy with those shots, I walked down a little to get a lower perspective, but for me this makes the front 2 spires much more prominent and larger, and diminishes the further spire, which is actually quite massive. By now it's getting quite dark, so the pink glow had gone and the exposures are getting quite long. The shadows here actually come from the rising moon. For the last image of the session, I walked between the 2 closer columns to really give the scale back to the distant spire and compress the distance a little. Again, it's that less is more idea. The front 2 spires are now just acting as a framing device, and the image is much more focused. But I think my favorite image was the one taken earlier when we had the wonderful pink twilight.
Just finished another sunrise session here in the Utah Badlands, photographing this incredibly shaped spire here. It's just this alien kind of claw coming out of the ground. We came here yesterday because we kind of marked it early when we've been looking on Google Maps as a location to shoot. So we came here yesterday in the middle of the morning to see where the light was going to be, because you can see we're kind of in this bowl that's surrounded on pretty much all sides by these really high walls. So working out whether it was going to be a sunrise or a sunset location, And it's not ideal for either because the sun has to come up over this wall here behind me, and then just start to paint it light. But by the time the sun does that, it's already quite high and quite strong. So we only got a few minutes of really good light when we just got the top sliver of the spire. And then it's just a challenge to know how best to photograph it, because when you look down on the ground here, there's lots of footprints and tire tracks and stuff like that, which aren't super nice. So shooting those before the light came, when that you can drop that into shadow, kind of, I think it enhances the image and just get the spire lit up. And then deciding which is the best focal length to use, because in my head I thought this was going to be a relatively wide shot, but you can see we've got one side of the canyon in shadow and the other side in bright light. So shooting that really wide, you get these really high contrasts. There's nothing happening in the sky today to diffuse the light, so the light's quite harsh. So I think it kind of worked out better just zooming in a little bit with the mid-range and shooting around the middle, just having a little bit of foreground and putting the spire either against just the bright wall on the back there and not having this shadowy wall on the left. But the light's a bit harsh now, so we're going to walk back to the car and get a coffee.
So again, with nothing in the sky and harsh light straight after sunrise, my favorite images were the ones taken in the soft light of the blue hour. The lower contrast really helps the image, and the colors are just warmer in indirect light. After the sun came up, I tried getting a few drone images to give a different perspective. With an aerial perspective, I had a lot more freedom to put the spire in front of different parts of the landscape, either with the spire in front of the shadowy wall or in front of the bright wall. And I quite like these perspectives, but they'd just be so much stronger with some interest in the sky. It would really help distract a little from the messy foreground, and this is definitely a location that I want to return to.
Another morning shoot finished in Utah. This place just keeps on giving. It's just ridiculously beautiful wherever you go. So we've just been standing in this field shooting the base of this butte here. It's got these wonderful yellow trees at the bottom, which have still got some fall foliage. So there's lots of yellow and gold there. And then this butte has got these wonderful kind of lines coming down, and in the camera it goes very pale blue. So you've got the contrast of the blues and the yellows, which are just really complementary colors. So just zooming in with a telephoto, cutting out the sky, making it a much more intimate portrait. It's a simple shot, but it's really quite satisfying. Earlier this morning for sunrise, we were in Factory Butte, which is, it's very similar to this behind us. It's just a butte with these wonderful creases and cracks that come down. So you get these really abstract shapes. And the idea was to shoot it with telephoto and with the drone. But when we got there, we realized that they allow ATVs there. So literally everything that you see is covered in tire tracks, which does ruin the images a little bit, because you're trying to find a spot where you don't have tire tracks. It just destroys that feeling of it being a natural place. So I mean, it was interesting. It's a beautiful place. We had a lovely sunrise, but I'm not sure what the images are going to come out like.
At Factory Butte, we wanted to get a slightly elevated position so we could shoot the whole of the butte without the bottom part being cut off. So we climbed up this rock spire a few kilometers out from the butte, and this gave us this clear perspective to do some telephoto abstract shots. Now, all of these were taken in the blue hour when the shadows on the mesa make the rock seem almost blue. I really like the long angular lines, but for me it felt as though the images needed a focal point. These lines are nice. I love abstract images like this, but the lines just feel a little bit unresolved to me, as though they're leading you nowhere. Just before the sun came up, I put the drone up to get a different perspective. Again, like most of the locations we were shooting, we weren't in a national or state park. It was hard to find nice compositions for abstract shots of the ridges because I still couldn't find a focal point, and there were so many tire tracks in so many of the compositions. So in the end, my favorite shot was a wide shot I did of the whole butte and the area around it just before sunrise when there was color in the sky. We also noticed when we were setting up that the kind of rock spire that we were standing on actually made a really interesting feature, and we could include it in ultra wide angle shots to the south where the sky had lots of color. We'd been so fascinated by these shale ridges at the bottom of the buttes and the mesas that evening we headed out to see if we could find an area where they were much cleaner and no tire tracks. There was lots of heavy cloud in the sky, so there was no chance of color or direct light. which meant working with a very minimal color palette and very minimal contrast. Just trying to find nice compositions for soft abstracts with the lines of the ridges and the valleys and the small streams in between. Composition is always about finding a flow. You want the eye to move through the image because this creates dynamism and flow. So I tried different arrangements with the stream as leading lines, or with the ridges or valleys as leading lines, leading across the frame, leading away from the camera, towards the camera, along a diagonal. We flew here until it was just too dark to see, and just playing around with compositions, looking for line and balance is a kind of thing you can get lost in. It's one of my favorite things about photography.
So Utah really does seem to have more than its fair share of amazing landscapes. I mean, look at this place. So we're here in the Badlands, in the Bentonite Hills. Wherever you drive in the Badlands, the geology seems to change every kind of few kilometers or so. It's completely different. And here it's just these mountains of red and multicolored purple, magenta, blue hills. It's incredibly photogenic. And we're here at sunrise. We'd been checking the weather forecast and it looked like we were going to have a lot of color this morning. There's quite a bit of mid-cloud, a lot of high cloud. And we'd scouted this location last night and it looked like somewhere that we could shoot. Unfortunately, the sunrise kind of didn't quite pan out how we wanted it to. The color wasn't where we hoped. We hoped it would spread all over the sky, but it was just in the east and we couldn't really find anything to compose there. But even so, it's been a really productive session. Tried a few shots with some interesting foreground with this colorful mountain behind me. Not sure how they worked. I'll see when I get back. But most of all, this is just an incredible place for aerials. We're not in a state park here, not in a national park here. We can fly drones. And when you see a place like this with all of these colors, you can see just the different textures. As soon as you start to get some elevation and look down on it, the compositions are endless. So we've been just composing abstracts, just looking for shapes, patterns, trying to find particular things that make good focal points. And it's just been an absolute pleasure, really. Even now, we've been here for about 3 hours. Sunrise was an hour ago, but the clouds are diffusing the light, so it's not too harsh. But we're going to still have a look around because we still think that there's more to see and shoot here. So here at the top, or at the highest point, and Hougaard Malan here is making a long exposure. Even now, I'm not sure how long it is since sunrise, but the clouds are really softening the light, so even now it's certainly still worth shooting. The colors are still really, really beautifully saturated. So I think I'm going to set the camera up and do a shot. So standing on top of one of the colorful hills, composition was a bit tricky because all of the hill on the right really does unbalance the image a little bit, makes it very right heavy, and I really don't feel as though the eye can move all that well through the frame towards the mountain in the background. If we'd been up here first thing in the morning, then we'd be looking right into the sunrise with all the color in the sky, and that might have worked better. But as it was, I felt that the best images again were the aerials we'd done earlier. I tried abstracts looking straight down, and while I'm happy with the colors, abstract images need a focal point, something to pull the eye towards, or they're just pretty colors. So I think the ones that I'm happiest here are the ones where the camera gimbal is at a slight angle, because this gives the scene a little bit more depth. You get a three-dimensionality of the hills, and the lines of the hill work better as leading lines. And it also allowed me to get the drone onto the other side of the hills and shoot into the sunrise when there's lots of color in the sky.
Not far away from where we were sitting amongst the red and the blue hills, we found this patch of kind of yellow rock, which gave me the opportunity to come away from the morning with a much wider range of shots. It really is just ridiculous how many images we were shooting at every single session in Utah. Now, I felt these rocks worked better looking straight down, as there were some spots where the circles worked as focus points, creating much more focused abstract images. And that's it for this second video from my trip around the Southwest. I hope it's been interesting, and if you've got any comments or questions, please just drop them down below and I'll get back to you. There's still more to come from this trip as we moved out of the Badlands and into some of the better known parts of the Southwest and then into the Pacific Northwest. So if you've enjoyed this, be my guest and subscribe to the channel. And if you enjoy my photography and would like to learn with me, I'd love to have you join me on a workshop. I run workshops all over the world, and while 2024 is pretty much sold out, we're just starting to open the 2025 tours now. We'll be heading to Patagonia, to Namibia, to Iceland, Greenland, the Dolomites, and Madeira, as well as returning back here to Utah for a workshop. You can find full details of all my tours on the website, so check that out and drop me a line if you've got any questions or if you want to sign up for one of the workshops. And as ever, thanks so much for watching and for all your support on the channel. All the best for your photography in the new year, and take care. See ya.